All right. Hey everyone. I don't have any shows today or any fun musical activities today. So what I'm going to do is do another thing that I said I would do on this vlog and discuss rock and roll history. In this case, not so much rock and roll history, but what's going on in terms of classic rock artists and what they're doing right now. Namely, we're going to talk about that debate, the age-old debate of whether rock stars let themselves get a little too long in the tooth before retiring. The short answer for me is no, I don't mind. I don't have any problem with these classic rock acts keeping playing till they physically can't anymore. In fact, I kind of like it because I go to a ton of classic rock shows. But one thing that I don't love is the constant farewell tours. And that's what I'm going to tackle in this video is all of the endless farewell tours. Because if you look right now, almost any time you buy a ticket for a classic rock band, it'll say the farewell tour because everyone's on them right now. Paul Simon did his farewell tour last year. Elton John, of course, is on his 3-year farewell tour. Kiss is on a 3-year farewell tour. Ozzy Osbourne's on a 3-year farewell tour. Slayer just finished a farewell tour. There's just so many of them. And here's my argument, which many people have said before, but here's how I see it. If you're going to go out on a 3-year farewell tour, it means you don't want to retire. You can't, when I read the article that came out last year, Elton John announces retirement. That's just what it said. Elton John announces retirement on my Facebook trending last year, and I was like, oh wow, after like 50 years, he's finally hanging it up. And I click on the article and it says Elton John retiring with 3-year tour concluding in 2021. If you're fully prepared to go out on the road for 3 years, you're not announcing retirement. I don't know. Because think about it, Elton John, when he started that tour, was 71, and now he's 72. Even to sign off on a 3-year tour at 71 is, I don't want to say risky, is that mean? But, he'll be 74 when this tour is done, which leads a lot of his fans to look at it and say, well, clearly it's going to be his farewell tour. But you don't know, because a lot of these classic rock artists will keep touring after 74. To me, one of two things is going to happen when someone starts a 3-year farewell tour. Either they're not going to make it through the tour. I don't mean literally survive. I just mean they won't be able to complete the tour. Or they're going to keep going past it. It's hard to know 3 years in advance when you're going to be ready to retire. And that's the thing. Bands have done this before. Most notably, bands like The Who and Kiss. The Who did a farewell tour in 1982. I think they did another one in 89, and then they did another one 3 years ago. In 2016, they said that the Who Hits 50 World Tour is going to be their long goodbye. They were right about the long part. And here's the thing. It's hard to tell whether bands are being predatory by jacking up the ticket prices for their big last tour and then going back out next year, or whether they genuinely think, look, I'm getting old, I'm going to do this one more time, and then I'm done. But then, the reason they're signing on to this tour is because they still feel like they want a tour. And they probably think that in a year or two from now, there's no way I'll still want a tour, but they don't know it till they get there. And then when the tour ends, they sit at home and they feel unfulfilled. They're like, I could still be doing this. Usually a couple years go by and they go back out and do it. Which again, I have no problem with rock stars keeping going as long as they physically can. I just don't get the need for the constant farewell tours. Also, the band Kiss, which is my favorite band. I've said so in a previous video, and how I get a lot of crap for saying Kiss is my favorite band. They're like, are you really a classic rock music fan if Kiss is your favorite band? I'm not going to go ahead and say that Kiss made all the greatest albums in rock history and stuff. They're just a fun live band. But they set a rather dangerous precedent on their farewell tour right now. It's basically an open secret in the rock and roll community that they're using tapes on the farewell tour. They would never announce it. They would never say it. They say In all their press releases, they try to make it sound like the tour is live, and they've never said anything that suggests that their tour is canned. But if you go and look at the videos, they're clearly canned. And some of the vocals, at the very least, the majority of Paul's vocals are canned. But the reason that's such a weird precedent is I've been talking about how bands will perform until they physically can't anymore, and Kiss is setting now this new precedent where even if you physically can't anymore, it doesn't mean you can't still tour. I mean, some people continue to tour after they're dead. What? Continue to tour after they're dead? Yeah, Ronnie James Dio. There's a Ronnie James Dio hologram tour going on right now, and I'm not going to discuss that. That's another thing. I don't actually have a problem with that. It's a cool way to honor the legacy of that, but it's interesting. Instead of solving the issue of Paul Stanley's voice is getting kind of shot by retiring, they've decided, why don't we milk this? Why don't we plug in some tapes? Okay, I sound like I'm being totally anti-Kiss here, but I'm going to have to make an announcement in terms of just being completely straightforward. I am totally one of those sheeps they always talk about on the message boards. You're a sheep for supporting what they do now. Yeah, I've seen the Kiss Farewell Tour twice already. I'm talking all this crap about it, but I don't know. They do a fun show, and I try to legitimize it in my head by saying Kiss has always been the stage show. Kiss has been like seeing a Broadway show, but of rock and roll. And maybe Paul's vocals aren't live now, but you're still getting the show, but I don't know. It's frightening. Yeah. But then again, Paul Stanley is also in the interesting position where his body can do a lot more than his voice can, if that makes sense. He's still a relatively physically fit guy. He just, I'm going to guess he didn't use proper technique or whatever singing, which you could argue I don't either. And then, so he's lost, for whatever reason, he's slowly been losing his voice over the years, but he keeps it going. Paul Stanley's one of my favorite rock frontmen. I'm not trying to be a total dick here, but yeah. And as for The Who, which is the other band that does the constant farewell tours, the reason they brought up Kiss is because they also, this farewell tour they've started this year is one of those things where they say it's going to be 3 years long. And they already did the farewell tour in 2000 and 2001. They went around. And then now people ask them in interviews, hey, you did a farewell tour 20 years ago. Why do we think this is going to be the real one? And they've said, look, that was the farewell to the original lineup. Now we've got Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer instead of Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, and we're going to do this farewell tour. This is the real one. That one we didn't realize that we only wanted to say goodbye to 2 of the members, yada, yada, yada. And The Who, like I said, has done a million of those. I saw The Who back 3 years ago in 2016 on their The Who Hits 50 tour. That tour, that show, the tickets went on sale 2 years before the event happened because they booked it a year in advance, and then Roger Daltrey got sick and they pushed it back another 9 months. But the show eventually came, and the show was fantastic. I thought that I'd be seeing one of the last Who shows of all time because they'd said that tour would be their long goodbye, and it had already been 3 years since that tour had started, and there were only about 2 more weeks of American dates following the show that I saw in Vancouver. But then in July, they did wind up doing the Who 51 tour. And then in 2017, they did some Tommy performances and stuff. Roger Daltrey did a solo tour last year, and now they're back out on the road with a full symphony orchestra. Again, I don't mind if Roger Daltrey's 75 and Pete Townsend is 73, and they are still an awesome live band. A lot of rock bands, get worse as they age, obviously. But The Who, I don't know, they still put on amazing shows. I've been watching clips from this 2019 tour, and I just can't believe how old they are and how they're still doing this. And so, awesome. More power to you. Just be wary calling it a farewell tour. Last year, one thing I was telling people was that Paul Simon is doing it right. He's going out on a shorter farewell tour that's just taking place in 2018. He's not doing the 3-4 year thing. But now here we are in 2019, the year after his farewell tour, and he is performing, I forget what festival it is, but he's performing at a festival in August. which he did hint in an interview that he might do a one-off here and there for charity. And that's what he's doing. He's giving the proceeds to charity. So I can't complain about that. But it's interesting to say it's tough for these rock stars to fully let go. And I get it. Gigs are fun. Especially when you have thousands and thousands of cheering fans for you. And yeah, Paul Simon's 77 and still going. Then there's also the act that never had like the pretense of a farewell tour, nothing like that. They just kept going year by year by year by year and still never retire and almost look like they never will. I'm talking about, of course, the first band you think to when you think of something like that is the Rolling Stones. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I do not believe the Rolling Stones have ever done a farewell tour, or at least never said that their tour was going to be their last. I'm seeing them in August on that in Seattle on their No Filter summer tour. That's the one that got postponed because of Mick Jagger's health problems. But he's all better now. They're ready to hit the road. They're all in their 70s. They've said nothing about a farewell tour. They're just still doing it. More power to them. Also of their generation is the Beach Boys, who still go out and tour. Oh, speaking of the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, for about 3 years, has been on the road on a trek that he calls Pet Sounds: The Final Performances. No, that's not really a farewell tour. I guess what they're implying is it's the last time he's going to play Pet Sounds start to finish. But it's hard to say the final performances when the final performances go on forever. I believe he started doing Pet Sounds: The Final Performances in 2016, and he's still booking dates for that. I got a chance to see it, and it was incredible. And his current touring band also includes original Beach Boy Al Jardine and also Blondie Chaplin, who was a member of the band briefly in the early 70s. I'll do more in-depth history videos for all of these bands in the future, but just talking about where they're at right now. The current Beach Boys touring band features Mike Love and Bruce Johnson, both of which are in their late 70s, still going. Beach Boys, again, as a group, the Beach Boys have never done a farewell tour. Even their 50th anniversary reunion tour a few years back was not listed as a farewell tour, and they're still going. So there are bands like that. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about Ozzy Osbourne's farewell tour, because remember I said earlier, also maybe some of these artists don't know what they're getting into with the 3-year farewell tours. Like, are they even going to make it through these tours? Ozzy Osbourne, as he did back when Black Sabbath was doing their farewell tour, and Black Sabbath have not come back from their reunion tour, their farewell tour. Tony Iommi seems like one of the few rock stars who's perfectly content in retiring now that that tour's done. Ozzy's not. Ozzy's doing his own farewell tour post the Black Sabbath farewell tour. It's confusing. But much like he did on the Sabbath farewell tour, there are a lot of dates being postponed. He's an older man. We all know his history. We all know his past. We all know he's not necessarily the healthiest dude of all time. But yeah, he's postponed a lot of shows. I know he's got a Vancouver show coming up, which has been postponed from 2019 to 2020. And so that's raising a lot of questions. Will Ozzy be able to continue touring till... they originally said his tour would wind up in 2020. I don't know if that's still what they're saying now, because so many dates were postponed. Whether they're pushing the end of that tour back to 2021, I don't know. But that's what he's doing. Motley Crue did a farewell tour about 3 years ago, but now I know Vince Neil tours as Vince Neil is some wordy title, like Vince Neil performs the hits of Motley Crue or something. I know that because they just announced the PNE Vancouver Summer Night Concert Series, and he's on the list, and I was like, really? He's out doing that still? Yeah, so... And just to finish out this video, I want to talk about the oldest rock stars who are still playing. In terms of rock stars being rock and roll specifically, I'd say the oldest still going is probably Jerry Lee Lewis. Although you could argue he's not still going. In February of this year, he had a stroke, which made him, a minor stroke they say, which made him postpone a few of his summer dates, but they said he'd return before 2019 was done. Then they wound up canceling all his 2019 touring plans. But his website seems to suggest, or his press release at least seems to suggest, they plan on him returning to the road, and that he's now returned home from recovering from this minor stroke. He's 83 years old. As of right now, he hasn't scheduled any more further tour dates, but he says he's gonna. You also got people like Buddy Guy. Buddy Guy is 82 years old. He's still performing rather regularly. And you got a number of people who I don't know if they would fit into rock and roll, but are now in their 90s and still playing. The one obvious one that I have to mention and I have to give credit to is Tony Bennett, a man whose career predates the existence of rock and roll at all, you could argue, is 92 years old and still on the road. I saw him live 4 years ago. At that point, he was 88, and he was unbelievable. I saw that weird tour where he performed with Lady Gaga, and it was actually a blast. Yeah, he's still got a great voice. He's 92, keeps going. Another guy who's 92 and still playing is Burt Bacharach, who wrote a lot of hits back in the 50s and 60s. He continues to tour, and he's in his 90s. The only person who I would call a rock star for sure, as in definitely counts as rock and roll. Again, you're going to have to let me know in the comments if you disagree with this. Who has even made it to 90 years old? The only one I can think of is Chuck Berry, who died at 90 and continued performing until he was 88, at which point he pretty much physically couldn't do it anymore. And that's a series I want to start on this video. On this channel, is the end of the career of some of these people who toured for years and years and years. How it ended, particularly when it got a little sad. Rock stars who got maybe Alzheimer's or dementia, and their performances suffered and were phased out. I'm thinking of people like B.B. King and Chuck Berry. When I say stuff like that. Not necessarily people like Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell got Alzheimer's, but did a very, I thought that was a pretty courageous farewell tour that he did. Anyways, that'll about do it for this topic. I just wanted to discuss all the bands that are on farewell tours and what I think about that. Let me know in the comments what you think about that, whether you think these rock stars need to just quit it and retire and get over it, or if you're perfectly happy, like I am, to spend money and keep supporting these ancient dinosaur rock and roll acts, they say now. Let me know in the comments. Check out the description for a full list of all my upcoming tour dates. I'm a singer-songwriter, for those of you who don't know. You can check out all my tour dates in the description, as well as where all my music can be sold or streamed online. Subscribe to this channel if you want to be updated whenever I upload a new video, which will be tomorrow and every day for the foreseeable future. And like this video if you liked what you see. Had fun discussing this topic, and I hope I get the chance to do more rock and roll related topics in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you again tomorrow.